So there he stood, a guy in the Golden Corral. He's standing in the Golden Corral in a Golden Corral restaurant, and he has Thousand Island dressing covering him from head to toe, all over him. It's all over his face, his glasses. It goes down his jacket. It's on his shoes, on his pants. Now, I'm not talking about just a little bit of Thousand Island. I'm talking about 2 gallons of this dressing all over him. So what happened was that this waitress had this big bucket of Thousand Island dressing that she was taking out to the salad bar. And so as she walks out of the kitchen doors, you know how they swing both ways, right? So she walks out and she pauses. About that time, this door hits her in the back, and she launches this bucket of Thousand Island dressing all over this guy. So after that happened, he got a little upset. Anybody relate to that? Getting a little upset? Thousand Island coming all over you? Yeah, could you give me the ranch? At least it wasn't blue cheese. So he started shouting and cussing this lady out. Can you imagine? Just going off on her. You are so stupid. I can't believe you would do something so stupid as this. I have on a brand new suit. This suit cost me $300. And he was just livid. And so here comes his wife. She's going to chime in. Can you imagine? She's like, yeah, you've ruined my husband's $300 suit, and this is the first time he's got to wear this suit. And so then he starts screaming again. He says, what do they say? What do they say, Chuck? I want to see a manager. Let me talk to the manager. So he says, I want to see a manager. So she is thoroughly shaken up. So she went and got the manager. Manager comes out. Now picture this. This guy is standing in the middle of the restaurant, covered head to toe in this dressing. And the manager walks out and says, is there a problem? He said, yeah, there's a problem. She ruined my $300 suit. It's a brand new suit, and I want a new one. So the manager says, well, sir, we'll be glad to get your suit cleaned. Accidents happen. We're really, really sorry about this. He says, oh, no. I want a brand new suit. I want you to write me a check for $300. Chuck, I want you to write me a check for $300 right now. So I want that check right now. And so the manager, he says, no way. So the manager says, okay, I don't want a bigger scene here. So he goes back into his office, writes out a $300 check, brings it out to the guy, and they're still fuming, but they leave. The upset customers leave. Now, this true story just happened to happen on a Sunday afternoon. Exactly. I love that look. Now, that's right. So where was this guy? Where do you think this guy was? He just got out of church. He just got out of church, and he shows up and has this horrible experience.
Those really are some of the worst customers.
I wouldn't doubt it.
They make the biggest mess in your restaurant.
Yeah.
They pull tables together. That's okay, but they're rude. They are.
Where are you going this afternoon? I'm just kidding.
We'll be there to mess up like I would have.
So we can kind of gather that this guy probably was at church. This is the first time he had to wear this suit. He was probably at church. He goes to this restaurant and completely makes a fool out of himself. He probably just... I've got these earbuds in my shirt. So ignore that. I'm recording this, so it looks kind of weird. Excuse me. Let's see here. Now I'm totally lost. So this guy probably what? He probably just heard a lesson about love thy neighbor, or maybe he heard a lesson about do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Right? So spill dressing all over him. Is that the story? I don't want to be judgmental here, of course, but the tragic part of this is that God has called us to be what? Transformed, right? We are to be different from the rest of the world. So you may expect that the rest of the world would act like this, but you certainly wouldn't expect a Christian to act like this, especially after just sitting through service. And so this story, it reminds me of a little boy who asked his father, he said, if God is bigger than us and God lives in us, shouldn't He shine through us? Doesn't that make sense? I mean, a little kid asking that question. So if we're Christians, when people see us, Jesus ought to show through us. And that is exactly the way God has always intended this. In fact, back in the beginning, in Genesis 1:26, the Bible tells us, "Then God said, 'Let us make man in our image, in our likeness.'" And in Romans 8:29, the Apostle Paul says, he says, "God knew what he was doing from the very beginning. He decided from the outset to shape our lives, or shape the lives of those who love him along the same lines as his Son." So we see the original and intended shape for our lives through Jesus. So in other words, we were created to become like Jesus. So from the beginning, God's plan has been to make us like his Son. In all of creation, and this is what is totally awesome to me, in all of creation, no other creature has been designed in God's image and in his likeness except for us. Now, we don't know what all of this means, of course, but we do know some of the aspects. First of all, like God, we are spiritual beings. Our spirits, they're immortal, and they will outlast our physical body. So Joe, he is now in heaven. His spirit outlasted his body. We are intellectual. We can think, reason. Most of us can think, reason, and solve problems. Like God, we are relational. We can give and receive real love. And we have a moral consciousness. We can discern right from wrong, which makes us accountable to God. Now, nearly 2,000 years ago, Jesus stood on a mountainside near the Sea of Galilee. Thousands of people had come to listen to him. And he delivered some of the most challenging statements that I think we'll ever hear. If you guys want to turn with me to Matthew 5, chapter 5, verses 1 through 10. These statements are referred to as the Beatitudes. Have you guys heard of that before? Okay. They all begin with the word blessed, which means blissful, fortunate, or in tune with God. So after studying this, they appear to me somewhat like steps or rungs on a ladder, as you go up the ladder. Now, you've all heard of climbing the ladder of success, right? Everybody in here has heard of that. Today we're going to talk about climbing the ladder of joy. So how many of you today would like a little joy in your life? How many people know somebody that would like a little joy in their life? You know what I'm saying? So let's talk about these Beatitudes. And as we do, let's realize that as we climb these rungs on this ladder up to the top, then God's promise of joy is ours. So if we do what these things say, God has promised to give us joy in our life. So Matthew 5, 1 through 10, let's consider what Jesus is saying here. Now, I think that Matthew wrote these Beatitudes down in the exact order that Jesus spoke them. And so I think that Jesus had a reason for putting them in the order that he did. And so we're going to look at them here. And now I've broken it up into basically two sections. The first four we're going to look at deal with matters that are internal to us. The second four they deal with matters that are external to us, okay? So the first four Beatitudes begin in verse 3. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, at first glance, that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It says, blissful or fortunate are people who are poor in spirit. Now, we all know what poor means. That makes a lot of sense to us. But what does it mean to be poor in spirit? Well, to understand that, first let's consider some synonyms for the word poor. And they are broke, busted, bankrupt, or destitute. Now put the word spiritual beside them, and Jesus is saying, blissful or fortunate are people who are spiritually busted, bankrupt, destitute, or broke. So Jesus is saying that the first step towards real joy in our lives, the first step is to realize that we are spiritually broke. We need God in our life. There's just no way to get around it. Fortunate is the person who finally recognizes that he can't handle it by himself, okay? He comes to God and he